economy, the GDP of the economy was around $150 billion. After those reforms, for the first few years, it ticked along, rising a little bit. And then sort of in 2004, 2005, it started to take off massively. For many of the years after that, it was growing at double digits, as much as 14-15% in some years. And that's a massive, massive achievement. Today, the Chinese economy is well over $13 trillion, second only to the US. Now, I personally believe that there's a number of factors that have caused that to happen. One, having a one-party government, which has been stable. And I've got another video about that, so if you want to check out the link up here, you're more than welcome to. Secondly, the hard work of the Chinese people, and I intend to make a video about that. Their work ethic is just unbelievable. The thing I want to talk about today is the education of the Chinese people. I think that, many years ago, maybe as early as that, China recognized that the way to make their economy and their country strong was to have a well-educated population. Back in those days, in the 70s, I guess much of China's population was not that well-educated. But since that sort of time, since the early 1980s, there's over 6 million Chinese students gone to study abroad. And many of those students have returned to China after their studies. And even the ones that haven't have ended up working in many of the foreign, tech companies abroad. And I noticed as well here is that a lot of the students, they don't study softer degrees. They study a lot of the sort of STEM subjects, language, maths, sciences, engineering. And I really believe this is what's really contributed to making China a strong economy, because they have this huge army of mathematicians, engineers, scientists. And this has really pushed their economy forward, and especially now you're seeing that payoff in spades in the technology sector. Now, I know a lot of you will sort of start saying, oh, yeah, but they've stolen their technology from other companies. But I just have a couple of points I'd like to address there. I've no doubt that China have stole some technology from other countries, but I would say that so have probably every other country in the world during the stage of their development. And I remember being in the UK back in the 60s and 70s, the same kind of thing was said about Japan. Japan were masters. They bought products from the West. They took them back to Japan. They reverse engineered them, and then they built them themselves. So, reverse engineering is another form of stealing technology. But, not so much criticism was ever leveled at Japan for that. Another point I'd like to address is, for example, high-speed trains here in China. Many Westerners say, oh, but they stole that technology from other countries. But actually, they didn't. When the contracts were put up to a number of foreign countries, Germany, Japan, for these high-speed rail networks that China wanted, it was clearly stated in those contracts that the companies who got involved must transfer that technology to China during that process. Now, those companies could have refused, but they were rewarded handsomely financially for the transfer of that technology. So you could argue that technology wasn't stolen at all. It was purchased by the Chinese. But what subsequently happened, the Chinese, put that technology to use building their infrastructure. again, infrastructure is another massive thing which has benefited their economy. They've had the foresight to build massive infrastructure here. But just going back to the railways, they've evolved that high-speed train technology. They've reverse engineered it. They've got the knowledge from other companies around the world, and they've made it better. So it stands today that China have got 25,000 plus kilometers of some of the most technologically advanced high-speed trains in the world. Probably only Japan sort of competes them, but still it has nowhere near the amount that China has. So going back to the education, not only do they send all these students abroad to study in many of the best universities around the world, England, America, Australia, Russia, etc. They have some very good universities here. So each year they have a huge amount of graduates graduating to go into their technology companies. And even before they get to university, if you look at recent studies by the OECD, Chinese secondary students are, topping the world league tables with their achievements. Their level is far outstripping many Western countries. And in fact, if you look at a lot of Western countries, the OECD did some data on the USA, and it shows even though the USA have spent huge amounts of money on their education system, the standard of education has not risen in the last 20 years.